One of the last things President Trump did before the new year was to launch Freedom 250, a task force created to carry out events to celebrate America's 250th anniversary. Now, it's working in conjunction with America 250, a congressional committee. These patriotic events are meant to serve as a reminder to Americans of our nation's heritage and the remarkable story of American independence. So joining me to discuss the significance of America's 250th anniversary is Mike Seriali, a U.S. Navy SEAL veteran and the Chief Talent Officer for Overwatch Mission Critical. Thank you so much for joining us, Mike.
Thanks, Arlene.
Now, President Trump has a number of big events planned this year, like a prayer gathering at the National Mall on May 17th and the Great American State Fair starting on June 25th. So what will this 250th anniversary mean for the nation?
I think it comes at an interesting time, and you've got to go back to the founding fathers who took all the risk alongside all the patriots, the colonials who fought against tyranny. If they were here today, I think they would be in awe and tears that we've made it this far, that we unlocked human potential and innovation to a rate that humanity has never seen, as Reagan once said. But, we can't sugarcoat the state of divisiveness within our nation right now. And I think this gives us an opportunity to reinforce the ideals and the values under which this country was founded, and see if we can't find some commonality to get back to what the true intent of our founding fathers was. And I think through a year of celebrations, not just one celebration on July 4th, but a year of celebration and remembrance for the million-plus Americans who've laid down their lives for our freedom, hopefully people that have never seen just horror like that combat, the Civil War, World War II, the War for Independence, hopefully they can find some way to understand the sacrifice that it took to get here today. And I think for a lot of Americans, that's a very difficult task to ask.
Now, I just want to follow up on that. You talk about the founding fathers and that they would be in tears today if they saw, what we're doing today. And when we think of July 4th, many people may associate it with fireworks and eating hot dogs. But talk about how important it is for all Americans to know and understand our founding principles and what those values hold and mean for us.
Well, hey, the fireworks and hot dogs, it's not a bad way to celebrate. It puts a bow on what is just a truly unique day. But we founded this nation, our founding fathers, with Judeo-Christian values. And, the principles of free speech and the right to bear arms. And we've come to a point where we have such polar opposites in our beliefs. The left has a vision. The right has a vision. It's not for me to say which one is right or which one is wrong. I know where I believe, and it falls within the conservative camp. But let's take the border issue and what happened in Minnesota recently. We are a sovereign nation. And sovereignty is not evil. It is survival for what we believe in and what some Americans, not all, are willing to die for. And you can't have sovereignty without borders. You can't have borders without enforcement. And you can't have enforcement without a few good Americans who are willing to just uphold the law. And, I don't expect for a lot of Americans to understand that. And to give you a point, Arlene, when the War for Independence started, the colonists never received more than 45% support from those that lived in the colonies to stand up for what is right and fight against the British. That shows that the minority always carries the load for the majority. But we've got to remember, that this was founded on the Constitution, which sets the framework for us to live, to govern. And some people just want to trample right over it. And so, again, the minority will stand for what is right. And they have usually almost all times been victorious in what is, I say, a just fight.
Now, you talk about free speech and standing up for what is right. And President Trump's goal has always been to make America great again. And he's referring to a time when there was a lot of respect and admiration for American freedom, as you talk about, and prosperity. But with the passage of time, many have lost that respect. So could the president's celebrations somehow reignite our faith and hope for this country and inspire people to support his vision?
I would love to be the optimist here and say, yes, I believe that the potential of these celebrations of our 250th can convince 50% of our country. But the truth is no. You look at what President Trump has done. He's trying to return, not only culturally to the values we once had, but he's actually reestablishing what I believe is just across the world, moral clarity. I think the hatred for President Trump overrides moral clarity for the left. That's my opinion. And I'll give you an example. There are those that, and the left was screaming for the removal of Maduro. President Trump does what they were screaming for a year ago, and now they want to cry constitutional law. President Trump didn't add to the instability of the Western Hemisphere. He removed the source of it when he removed Maduro from power. I think we lack the moral clarity. Moral clarity requires hard, uncomfortable decisions for what is right, not only for America, the Western Hemisphere, but the world. And his actions in the Western Hemisphere, removing Russia and China from our doorstep, who are fighting through asymmetric means that have a long-term view on overtaking America, he just cut them off at the knees. So, that was a bold and necessary decision. And again, half of the country will not respect that. And so it is that divisiveness. And I don't have the right answer to what brings us together. And maybe the right question is it even possible to come back together? But at the end of the day, to me, and someone who served 20 years alongside some of the best men and women I've ever met, and just watching selfless valor for something they believe in, this country, I have a different perspective than most Americans who have never traveled the world or seen a third world country, which is 85% of the world.
Now, you talk about divisiveness today and a lack of moral clarity, but our founders seriously contemplated what this new nation's values should be, and they leaned on God for moral inspiration. But we're losing this, as you say, we're losing those values to things like anti-American thought, for example, critical race theory. And these all bring to mind the Marxist ideologies that we've seen in other countries like communist China. So how important do you think it is to celebrate our nation and values to counter these anti-American ideologies?
Just look to the world and study history. If you want a current modern event, look at Venezuela, a people that were ruled by a socialistic dictator. Who oppressed his people, who murdered his people, who imprisoned his people. And once Maduro was removed, what did they do? They sang, they danced, they cried in the streets, finally a free people. That's what America stands for. And so socialism and Marxism or communism will never have a place here. And we see what's going on with New York with the first socialist democratic mayor. That is an experiment, which I can tell you I've seen this movie before, which will end badly. New York is worse off because of the situation they're in. So, it just takes a few brave people to stand against that. What I think a lot of Americans miss is that patriotism. And if you want to be extreme, call it nationalism for the ideals that we believe in is the social glue that held this country together for 250 years. And we are seeing it eroded. And you know what? I think you brought up critical race theory. We brought up these woke DEI policies. They proved ineffective. They proved just to be a utter and abysmal disaster. And I do think that the pendulum is starting to swing back the other way, that people were done with it. They were just fed up with it. And if people want to protest ICE, if they want to try to hit ICE members with their, ICE officers or agents with their car, we're just going to follow the law, the letter of the law. And ultimately we will prevail, but we've got to be patient. We've got to demonstrate restraint and just stand by the values you live in. And usually when you do that, you persevere and we come out stronger.
Now, we know President Trump is planning some very big events this year. It started on New Year's Day with the celebration at the National Mall. But after these celebrations are over, what will the president need to do to keep the momentum going in this goal of his to make America great again?
Not listen to those that support anti-American values. Continue to show the moral clarity and the moral courage to do what he thinks is right, to I would say reunify this country, but to put this country in a better place than it was, to close off our borders, with what he's done in Venezuela, to reset the global chessboard, to reach out to our allies and hold them accountable as he does, as he has with NATO. I think he's done a fabulous job. Again, very few are going to give him credit. He's ended close to 10 wars. He is a president that believes in peace, but he is willing to do what is necessary, the hard decisions, when someone is a threat to our sovereignty and our people, and he's done just that. So, I can only applaud him, while others will decry him, and that's fine. Leadership is a very difficult thing. It's not a popularity contest. It's doing what is right for the organization. And in his case, what is right for the country and what is right for the world, because usually what is right for America brings peace and prosperity to the rest of the world. But this sense of appeasement that we've had for arguably the last decade, of trying to appease our foreign adversaries or our enemies or appease allies without holding them accountable, it has proved ineffective. In Arlene, I'll say this, a lot of companies are fearful of upsetting the woke left. In our company, Overwatch Mission Critical, the first thing we do every morning is hold a daily muster at 9 a.m. And the first thing we do during that daily muster is we play the national anthem to remember, to rally around one thing that unites us. And we may be a company that's only 300 people, but we feel that unity that, we may be in the private sector and I'm not in the military anymore, but we have a goal, and that is to strengthen the U.S. economy, which arms our military with the budget, the resources that they need to protect freedom across the world. And it's funny, we've had certain people object to doing that. And guess what? We made it optional, not mandatory. We cannot, and we should not try to pull people back in to the fold who just absolutely see something or have ideals that are anti-American. Let them do their thing. But if we can pull ones and twos here from here and there, and remind them of the sacrifices that people had to make, why the ideals have worked for 250 years, maybe there's a chance that we can slowly turn this country in the right direction. And I think President Trump is doing that.
Well, with what President Trump has planned, I'm sure so many Americans are going to be very inspired by it. Mike Serial, U.S. Navy SEAL veteran, thank you so much for joining us.